What's up, guys? Welcome back. All right, I haven't watched this yet. But IGN dropped a new video on Death Stranding on the beach, Death Stranding 2 review, and I'm curious to see what they're saying about it. Obviously, I've got some thoughts on the first one. So let's see if this is going to be looking just as strange or if Kojima's cooking up something even weirder. All right, let's hit play.
Well, now, aren't you a sight for sore eyes?
Platypus semen, a
Troy
talking
Baker.
crash test dummy, a puppet soaking in a hot spring, this ugly bastard, Norman Reedus' nips. No, these aren't straitjacket blabberings due to another vicious bout of temporary madness. Instead, they're just 10% of the bizarre things I've seen in Death Stranding 2 on the beach. But it would be far too easy to dismiss Hideo Kojima's works as acts of weirdness alone. I think we should encourage such wild creativity and be excited that someone is willing to show us things we'd never even thought of seeing. When viewed this way, Death Stranding 2 stands as an almighty achievement, a triumphant combination of complex sci-fi storytelling and thrillingly evolved stealth action that impressively builds upon the experimental foundation of its predecessor. It's beautiful, horrific, nuanced, and crucially, a lot of fun. Simply
It
put,
does look
it's
ridiculous,
everything I
though.
wanted Death Stranding to be.
As in, it looks really good. It looks really good. Classic Kojima stuff.
The rhythm of Death Stranding 2 will be familiar to those who played the original. Reedus is back as Sam Porter Bridges, once again on a mission to make deliveries across treacherous terrain, often facing human and otherworldly threats along the path. It requires you to be prepared for what faces you on each mission by studying your map and packing accordingly. See a river too deep to walk through in your way? Bring a ladder or two along to cross with it. Spot a warning that BTs, the ghostly threats that stalk certain rainy spots, lurk in that area. Pack a few blood grenades to lob at them.
So the walking simulator.
It's this loop of preparation, overcoming both geographical and human/former human hurdles, and reaching your goal that makes up much of Death Stranding 2's 35-hour runtime when mainlining its story missions. After a brief tutorial chapter in Mexico, Sam is given the goal of connecting Australia to the chiral network, the online system knitting civilization together after a near-world-ending event, much like he did with the USA in the original. Why is he doing that, and who is he doing that for? You'll just have to find out yourself.
From halfway around the world, how are we supposed to do that again?
Still a bit
This
of
new
mystery around
continent
this.
offers a far greater variety of locations, as it shifts in its appearance and the challenge it presents with regularity. It further adds to the feeling of combating nature with this future tech, as the Earth itself seems to be fighting back against its increasingly digital future. Should we have connected? It's a resounding no, it seems, from Mother Nature.
What in the world?
Okay.
The dangerous
So are we doing more walking this time? Is that what this is? I hope not. Because yeah.
desert expanses of the Road Warrior are no doubt
I
an
was hoping
inspiration,
for
and the
I was hoping for a little bit more action. Yeah.
guest appearance of Mad Max's creator George Miller is more than a mere coincidence. These are not just cinematic influences for the sake of it, as they inform and instruct Kojima's approach to gameplay too, and are reflected in an altogether more action-heavy evolution of the
Slow-mo.
original Death Stranding's template. What initially presents itself as a pretty rudimentary style of stealth gameplay, mainly consisting of crouching in tall grass and performing silent takedowns, rapidly reveals its layers as your arsenal grows. For example, there's the introduction of a game-changing tranquilizer sniper rifle, which is something I found super satisfying to pick bandits off with. It may never truly become the stealth action playground of creativity that Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is, but it frequently evokes that same feeling in brief moments, delighting
see
me
that.
each time it does. Death Stranding 2 offers a lot more flexibility in your approach compared to the original Death Stranding, making its combat much more engaging as a result, and you'll need to become a
Sorry. This does have a bit of that Phantom Pain vibe. I mean, are you surprised? Are you surprised really?
them to a variety of approaches as well, because there's no avoiding confrontation and the many forms it takes this time around. Enemies develop as you progress, and knowing which are armoured, which have higher mobility, and what ammo type they're vulnerable to adds variables to each encounter, meaning you can't always rely on the same rinse and repeat tactics. That being said, if you're a decent enough shot with a sniper rifle, you can clear out most spaces before enemies have time to reach you. Crucially though, it's just as fun when it goes wrong as when it goes right. There's a satisfaction in a perfectly planned attack going smoothly as you pick off each guard with a tranq dart, but a thrill when one shot goes awry and you're made to scramble, juggling your arsenal as enemies descend upon your position. Shooting the driver of an onrushing vehicle before stealing it to run over his friend is always fun, as is dancing around them in a machine gun turreted off-roader of your own design. Overall, there's a playfulness in Death Stranding 2's approach to combat that just wasn't present in the original's simpler, less imaginative system. It brings a dash of power fantasy to the mix, adding to the fun and making it a wholly more enjoyable game to play. Enemy AI may still not be the sharpest, but it does enable some of that playing with your food energy that's always welcome. I played on...
Okay, that's a really good thing. I love that, because I think the first one just lost me halfway through. Cool ideas, but mad confusing and kind of boring gameplay. Controversial opinion, I know, but I'm glad to hear that there's a little bit more playfulness, there's a little bit more action back in this game. Not back in this game, but in this game. That's good. Good stuff.
Normal difficulty and never really found any fight a challenge until things cranked up a little towards the end. This lack of friction is deliberate though, with the increased toolset including many different gun and grenade types of varying loudness, allowing you to get through its story at a good pace. In fact, even boss battles can be skipped entirely if that particular challenge isn't what you're here for. This isn't something I recommend though, as they offer some of the most striking spectacles Death Stranding 2 has to offer.
I think that's something that they're trying to do in order to get more casual gamers to try this game, because I think in the first Death Stranding, a lot of the casual gamers were turned away from it after trying it for a couple hours because of how confusing and kind of hard and walking simulatory it got. So I think they're trying to like get people to come back, maybe people who were kind of interested in the first game but didn't fully try, and then kind of also interested to see how this pans out. I think this would keep those gamers in the game and keep playing, because not all gamers want to get good, you know? They want to try to enjoy the story for what it is. So sometimes we don't think about it, but some people might want to just skip the boss battle, you know? It's good. More people, the more the merrier, right?
Giant tentacle mech is an early favourite, but there are many more monstrosities following later that I'll keep hidden here.
What a hit! Cliche, but that one's gotta hurt.
Your action chops are also firmly put to the test in the sections that have you face off against newcomer Neil, played with a subtle intensity by Italian actor Luca Marinelli. They're particularly stunning stages full of flame and beauty that made me feel I was briefly taken away to a different game. But those lashings of cinematic style are painted across each encounter, and the many cutscenes that bookend them. Having time slow down after dispatching an enemy is not only very helpful when faced with multiple threats, but adds a slick layer of style to each gunfight. No aspect of Death Stranding 2 is left untouched by its blockbuster aspirations. But as both elements and entities fight against you with more vigour this time around, you're in turn given new abilities to combat them with. Unlike the first game's relatively bare-bones character progression, now skill points can be used to unlock fresh tools and boost your stat sheet. Death Stranding 2 is by no means an RPG, but it does offer greater and much appreciated variety when it comes to building out how you want your Sam to play. Want to be sneaky Sam? Invest in the ability to cover your tracks by scrubbing out your footprints. Want to be shooty Sam? Augment his arsenal so it packs a heavier punch. You'll ultimately be treading the same set of missions as every other player, but the ways you can choose to approach each one are far more varied this time around. These perks can also be freely plugged in and out, reminiscent of how Nier Automata's fantastic chip system functions, and offers great flexibility, further enhancing your freedom when preparing for specific types of missions. Upgrades get unlocked in accordance with how you've been playing. For example, if you take a combat-heavy approach, you'll be rewarded with new skills like a semi-automated lock-on ability for your guns.
That's good.
It's a nice touch that further makes Death Stranding 2 feel like an experience that is in step with you, and another indication of its formerly rough edges being sanded down for a much more enjoyable time. On top of perks, there is also no shortage of gadgetry and weaponry available to Sam. Completing side missions and increasing your star ranking with each of the outposts dotted around the map unlocks these options at a consistently good rhythm, as well as some that open up when you complete certain story events. The tools get weird and wild too, coming at such a regularity that you'll be moving on from one shiny tool of destruction or subterfuge to the next with each mission.
Alright, I'm all for like really, unlocking cool gadgets and gear at a consistent pace in games. But I feel like as long as they don't do it too much, as long as they don't go down the route of AC Valhalla. Valhalla was dropping loot and all this gear like every 5 seconds. It just got so overwhelming, and I just didn't even care. I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to this problem, but hoping they just keep it just exclusive enough so that it's exciting when new loot drops.
But it isn't just in combat that these accessories have their uses either, because no matter how much Death Stranding 2 has cranked up the action this time around, it is still fundamentally about porting cargo from one location to another across Australia. That vast expanse naturally leads to new
Hey, that's where I live.
delivery systems. Yes, turns out there really is nothing on Earth like a genuine bona fide electrified 6-car monorail. This new structure is a godsend when it comes to a handful of missions that require shipping hundreds of kilos of chemical materials over a rocky coastline, but it does require quite the combined construction job between you and the online community. That being said, I did settle on travelling on foot as little as possible quite quickly. On the Beach is very kind in the way that it gives you a vehicle very early on this time around, especially when compared to the many hours it took to fire up an engine in the original. The missions themselves are incredibly Moorish, with that just one more job itch that I always had to scratch. There's a great sense of forward momentum which aids this sensation hugely, with backtracking thankfully a rarity in the sequel. Varied mission conditions also keep things fresh. These range from having to complete orders within a set time limit or being extra careful with fragile cargo. Again, these parameters force you to adjust how you prepare for each mission and ensure you can't just use the same toolset and methods on every run. It's this consistent drive along a drip feed of new equipment that makes the whole experience more rewarding. The overall structure of Death Stranding's 2 campaign is leaps and bounds above what came before, and whether it's unleashing bullets into a teleporting mech or gently navigating a river, it all feels intertwined beautifully and serves the complex sci-fi story it aims to tell to fantastic effect.
High praise. High praise. High praise.
Pride of the Shiranui!
Okay.
Local. Violence match.
Great.
I guess I'm homeward bound.
Missing little Lou that badly?
You know I am.
Set 11 months after the events of the original, On the Beach's twisting tale begins with Sam attempting to settle into a quiet life off the grid with baby Lou. Where it goes from there, I won't even dare to spoil, but I guarantee you won't see even half of its reveals coming. I can say though that there's an ongoing trend of viscosity throughout. Tar, sludge, oil, blood, you'll wade through it all, but it's also thick with intrigue, as the secrets continue to be uncovered in a flurry of ideas so dense I struggle to point to its like elsewhere. The themes it tackles are multifold, some focus on a more personal level and others are global.
I just can't get over how ridiculous Sam looks here. He just looks so ridiculous. It's hard to take him seriously. And he's wearing a cap called Why Me?
The latter is a treatise on modern life and how technology infests every part of it. It's a strong story of how increased existence in the digital world eats away at our souls as humans, as physical interactions, especially in a post-COVID environment, became all the more precious. I can't help but feel that Kojima is bristling with thoughts about how art and individual expression can...
I wonder how many celebrity cameos we have in this game.
never be replaced by artificial intelligence, no matter how it's forced upon us. And then there's the commentary on gun culture and our world's obsession with building bigger and better weapons. These are of course themes Kojima has been writing about for decades now, all the way back to the original Metal Gear Solid in 1998, but still remain frustratingly topical and worthy of continued commentary on in a modern context.
Guns and violence, the whole damn world could be yours. Same as it ever was.
It's a credit to the storytelling that all of these concepts shine through, without getting too bogged down or obscured by the sci-fi trappings they could so easily sink into. But Death Stranding 2 doesn't only look outwards. It's as introspective as any of Kojima's work to date. Metal Gear Solid always looked at geopolitical and nuclear issues on a wide scale, and the original Death Stranding challenged our ability to connect as humans in a digital age. But On the Beach asks questions about the issues posed in that original text. It's self-analytical, but rarely gazes at its navel, delivering a knockout story that works on so many levels. The theme of connectivity fittingly weaves each disparate part together by exploring not only how we connect to each other, but with our own pasts as well, what we choose to hold on to and what we choose to let go. I don't think it's any coincidence that Neil resembles Solid Snake, a character whom Kojima has had to make peace with cutting ties with ever since his departure from Konami a decade ago. Death Stranding 2 almost feels like a funeral for his beloved bandana operative.
That's interesting, huh? We saw that coming though, we saw that coming.
Norman Reedus continues his stoic portrayal of Sam Porter Bridges and anchors the story with a calm, centered approach. I do find Sam a fairly impenetrable character to connect with on an emotional level though, as he again serves as a vehicle for the story rather than the personal heart of it. He is given more range to work in this time around, but his not too high, not too low performance once again allows for the supporting cast to shine. Léa Seydoux beguiles as Fragile, a layered character that the French actress elevates even further. Elle Fanning is fantastic as the enigmatic Tomorrow, and the mysterious Red Samurai is dripping with cool. It's the kind of sleek style we've come to expect from artist Yoji Shinkawa, ever since Cyborg Ninja first dashed onto the screen in 1998. He's a master character designer on top of his game, and Death Stranding 2 really gives him the opportunity to cook again and again. I also have a soft spot for the aforementioned Dollman, who makes the journey a little less lonely by accompanying you at all times on your utility belt. He's effectively a version of God of War's Mimir, but instead of funny retellings of myths and legend, we're treated to high school level interpretations of the themes of Moby Dick, and occasionally telling you that you stink.
Sam, been a while since you
Yeah,
had
I kind of when I saw this man in the first trailer, that's what I thought of him. Kind of, he's Mimir. He's Mimir to Sam. Sam's God of War.
The standout performer this time around though has to be Troy Baker's return as Higgs, who pretty much steals every scene he enters. He's been given license to bring an even more operatic edge to the character this time around, complete with a chilling mask and crimson electric guitar to match. A ready Van Halen, if you will.
Yeah. I kind of dig this.
Is your local business invisible online? SEMrush's local toolkit improves business profiles, helps manage reviews, and makes businesses visible online. Impressed?
It's a big role in every way and matches the grandeur of the story being told, but in truth, there's not a single poor performance to be found within the cast, each being given moments to shine in both loud and quiet pockets. For as much cargo as there is being logged around this world, it's the emotional baggage of the characters that weighs the heaviest, and that pressure builds and builds until its jaw-dropping final few hours, of which I can safely say I've never seen anything quite like before. While I love how it ends, I do wish it started a little thicker and faster. It's so full of mystery that going a couple of hours of deliveries before finding out the next big nugget of the main plot can feel a little agonizing. Multiple hours can go by without seeing key characters, and there are a handful of instances when your home-based ship is grounded and you need to complete some deliveries before it can get on the move again. These do hinder momentum at times, but never bring things completely to a halt. Those parts are quickly forgotten though, because On the Beach does go to some legitimately batshit places, as well as some classic Kojima fourth wall breaking antics, and I frankly couldn't get enough of that. Its willingness to show us things we simply haven't seen before is something I appreciate so much, because when big creative swings are taken with a budget of equal magnitude behind them, there's nothing else that quite hits the same when they land.
Big Kojima fanboy, huh?
The original Death Stranding held promise, a complex, often confusing but never contrived first draft. A reflective journey across a lost
That looks
America,
cool.
it established a world and its rules with a flourish, even if I found it stumbled along the path. But in Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, Australia plays host to an expanded vision and is a more accomplished achievement in nearly every facet. It removes
I'm just glad that someone thought of Australia.
almost all of the friction that weighed down its rookie effort, delighting with a truly unpredictable story full of intrigue and malleable stealth action playgrounds hidden in a vast, hauntingly beautiful version of Australia. Yes, at times it is unapologetically weird, but that isn't what defines it. It's an inventive journey packed full of both shock and awe, the sort of bold work that deserves to be encouraged. No, it isn't perfect, but it's incredibly exciting and original, never once straying from the path less trodden, and I love it all the more for it. It. No, it isn't perfect, but it's incredibly exciting and original, never once straying from the path less trodden, and I love it all the more for it.
Ooh, 9 out of 10 from IGN. That's almost a perfect score.
Executive Reviews editor Tom Marks here with Simon Cartier, a reviewer of Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, to talk a little bit more about his tastes in the genre and Kojima games in general, why he wanted to review this one, all that stuff. Simon, you've probably seen on IGN before. He reviewed Astrobot, Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, also shooters like Overwatch 2, Marvel Rivals. You've reviewed at least 2 Call of Duty single-player campaigns.
But did he review first Death Stranding game?
Think in there. But let's talk about Death Stranding specifically. What drew you to this one? Why do you want to review the sequel here? Because you didn't review the original. That was just an Ogilvy. But
Okay, I
had
got my answer.
similar-ish thoughts, kind of roughly in line with what his review of that was.
Yeah, I kind of felt similarly to Tristan about Death Stranding 1. I may be slightly more positive about Death Stranding 1 than Tristan, but I wouldn't say by a whole bunch. I think there's a lot of great ideas, and I was into the
Okay, what happened?
world and the story of the original Death Stranding, and that's kind of what drew me to Death Stranding 2. Like, every trailer that released of Death Stranding 2, like, I started off
Stuttering a little bit.
thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to go back into this world again, but like every
There you
trailer
go.
release, I was like, maybe I'm more and more excited for Death Stranding 2, and it got to the point where, I don't know, a month ago, the most recent trailer, I was like, do you know what, I want to get my teeth back into this. And it was that promise, I think, of the original game, and there was the real rough draft of a great first game in that first one for me, and that hope that the second one would be able to do it, and I'm very grateful they did, really.
In interviews leading up to this, Kojima has even himself said, he's almost disappointed by this idea that this one was testing better, that it was people were thinking of it as more of this
Kojima's
is
being
harsh,
weird.
but like functional, normal
As he does.
style game, whereas the first one was a little bit more experimental and different. And what do you make of that? Like, do you think that he was? Do you think there is something that has been lost there? Do you think he's overreacting? Like, what do you
I
make of
think he's overreacting, because I feel like, if you really didn't get along with the first Death Stranding, I don't think this does enough new things or makes it a completely different game to the point where you're going to go, oh, this is, it is making it more welcoming to newcomers and people who already did this the first time. Like, it doesn't spend 10 hours teaching you how to deliver one parcel again. It gets you straight back into it and like gives you an assault rifle and a bite pretty much in the first hour and says, right, kind of do your own thing. It is kind of more, and I do allude to it a bit in my review, there is how you want to nature, which I feel like kind of was lost in the first one. I feel like there was maybe ambitions in Death Stranding 1 for it to be a bit more do it how you want, but ultimately there kind of was just a few paths you should have taken. But I feel like this has done pretty much everything it should have in terms of making a sequel to the original.
this isn't Metal Gear. It is not trying to be Metal Gear. It is its own thing. It's a very different thing. But On the Beach is a lot.
All right, so the commentary goes on for a bit. I'm just gonna stop it right there. I'll just give you my first initial expressions on that review from IGN. They gave it a 9 out of 10, which is very interesting because I don't know what they gave the original Death Stranding 2. Oh, sorry, original Death Stranding. Let's figure it. Death Stranding 1 IGN review. With a 6.8 out of 10 for Death Stranding 1. An okay verdict. Death Stranding delivers a fascinating world of supernatural sci-fi, but its gameplay struggles to support its weight. Yeah, and then they gave it a 9 out of 10 for Death Stranding 2, which makes sense because it's not reviewed by the same person. And anyway, so this is all good, well good. I think the review is pretty okay for what it was, and reflective of what we all heard about Death Stranding 2 and how it's improved gameplay and how it's a bit more action. Some gameplay elements and mechanics reminiscent of Metal Gear Solid, which is not surprising at all. I am very keen to play it and see how it goes because I fell off the first one halfway through. I did not enjoy all that walking and balancing, to be honest with you. I know, controversial, like I said. There's a lot of people who enjoyed that, which is fine, which is totally fine. Yeah, I'm gonna jump into this and see how this goes, and let me know what you guys thought of this review and what you guys think of the game so far, and if you're keen to jump on that as well, like me, and if I should do a playthrough, let me know in the comments below. Drop a like, sub if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.